So first of all, I want to just welcome, some of you have already met Mish Sheppard, who's here and will be speaking later on in the service, and we're absolutely delighted to have you here, Mish. Honestly, it's a real privilege, and when I called you to see if you would come, it was like, to have you say yes was very exciting to me. So we're glad to have you here. For those of you who don't know, March 31st marks the International Transgender Day of Visibility, called TDOV. And for those who are, again, not aware, it's an annual event dedicated to celebrating transgender people and raising awareness of discrimination faced by transgender people worldwide, but also to celebrate their contribution to society, right? Today, as always, Melbourne Inclusive Church, we stand with our transgender siblings to say we see you, we love you, we're here for you, and to acknowledge the beautiful part of the tapestry of this world that you bring. Each and every one of us is worthy of celebration. Each and every one of us is a masterpiece, worthy of his love because of what Christ has done. Your gender or sexuality is not a sin. It is a beautiful reminder of the amazing diversity and uniqueness of our beautiful God. Amen? Amen. Well, if I can, it is my great honor to have Michelle joining us today.
The stories take us along. That's how we've learned. As human beings, we've told stories to save ourselves from many different things and how we've got many different myths and many different ideas. But along the way, in recent times, many of us have kind of lost just our humanity or just our connection to one another. So one of the things I do within my training, I talk about things around even like gender and sexuality in the early 20th century, right? So early 20th century, when we look at the 1920s, this is where sort of that divide of the pinks and the blues, the colors, and trying to hardcore what gender was for all of us. But again, the 1940s, we then changed it again to, the opposite. Girls were pink, boys were blue. So it goes to show how much we've actually been kind of changing and moving a lot of this. As a community, we came together many times, but along the way, a lot of my work is highlighting ways of how we can come back together as sexually diverse individuals and gender diverse individuals. One of the most important things about Transgender Day of Visibility on March 31st is to celebrate and recognize the resilience and accomplishments of the transgender community. And from here, when I talk about transgender, I'm talking about transgender, gender diverse, and all the different identities within the non-binary spectrum. So we're going to refer to as transgender, okay? Because it's the umbrella term. And on that day, we celebrate these people among us. We raise awareness about the struggles that they face and advocate for more protected rights for them in a bid to reform society and empower this community, as it so rightfully deserves. And there's a lot of pressure on transgender people at the moment to conform and change to prove their gender to others. I believe that we as transgender people, regardless of identity, expression, or orientation, are enough just as we are. For the rest of the LGBTIQA plus people, this is a message of strength, resilience, and for non-trans, cisgender people to please stand up and show solidarity and support for our trans family, friends, and colleagues. In order to understand what I do and where I'm at and the work that I'm doing, you gotta go back to the beginning. Every story has a beginning. So I'm gonna take you on a bit of a journey of my little story as well. Okay? As Maria says, the top of the hill with Sound of Music, the beginning is a great place to start. I myself come from the U.S., raised in St. Louis, Missouri. Religion was a very big part of my life growing up. Every Sunday with my grandmother and my mother, and lunches and stuff with my grandmother afterward. And but the problem was for me was I really struggled with who my identity was. And my identity was actually in a lot of struggle from a very young age. And so, to share with you, to understand that, my birth name was Daniel Sheppard. And at the age of 3, I was adopted under the name Danny Beaver. So the majority of my life, I only knew Danny Beaver. I didn't know who Daniel Sheppard was whatsoever. So from a young age, my identity was already kind of shifted and changed and moved. Now, me sharing that name with you is not about, I actually have found power in using that name. It's not, I don't refer to it as a dead name because I find that quite dark and morbid. It was a name that was given to me out of love. Then throw on top my gender identity from a very young age at 4, and believing and understanding within my mind how I saw myself within the world. Then from there, my sexuality kicked in. And oh my God, what an absolute whirlwind. What in the world do I do with this? So dealing with this majority of my life, but then given this name by a man who said that he loved me, but I dealt with physical and sexual abuse at the same time. So for a number of my years, up to the age of 19, to the point where I was kicked out, you can imagine the whirlwind I was going through my entire life. And when I was finally told, and when I found somebody to help me understand what it was I was dealing with within my gender identity, I was told I needed to be this way. I needed to be gay. I needed to identify this way. There's no way you can be trans. There's no way this, your gender identity, whatever. And so you have to walk away. And I'm even more confused because this doesn't make sense to me whatsoever, what's going on. I got married at 20 to my first wife. My first wife is one of my best friends to this day. But it was very difficult for her when eventually I came out and everything. But before we split, we became youth ministers in the Catholic Church. We did a lot of engagement with the community, a lot of engagement with just a lot of work with youth around some of the things they're dealing with. It was a time where I kind of felt a little bit more that I was found. You know, it was my way of kind of like praying the gay away, confirming that I was heterosexual, confirming, you know, these things that I was told by society. You know, I found pleasure in knowing that I understood more about Scripture, the things that I understood. I'd come in nights of DJing late with my brother-in-law at the bars, and you just walk in smelling like cigarettes and vodka, and you kind of go, yes, this is Scripture, this is this. Most people didn't know, and it was interesting for me because I found power in that. But I still was lost. I didn't know where I was. I had gone and found my name. I had taken back my original name, my birth name, the name that was given to me. And I was trying to find my path, trying to find my way, trying to find where I'm going. And as I had found myself within my community, within my spirituality, within my life, my chosen church, my life at that point, I was going through divorce. And as I was going through divorce, I was told, you need to leave. You can no longer work with the kids. You can no longer work with the community. You are no longer welcome within this church. I asked the priest, can we have a catch-up? Can we have some time? And I went on a retreat with the priest. And through a night of sort of prayer, unfortunately, the priest became very inappropriate. And I had to walk away. And I found I was lost within my own faith, within my own identity, within my own sexuality, within my own gender. I was going through divorce. I was going through everything. Sleeping on the floor, nothing. I had a tuna cover and a blanket, and I was done. I eventually met my second wife in Australia, met online, and it was a point of going, you know what? Let's start fresh. I'm Daniel. I find strength in this. I'm Daniel Sheppard Jr. Come to Australia, and as soon as I came to Australia, I walked away from everything. I hid my identity, sexuality. I tried to become as masculine as I could, as heterosexual as I could, as, you know, pushing away everything to do with gender and color. And, you know, I'd always wanted to be a makeup artist ever since I was a child. You know, I remember being in a bookstore, and I was in love with Kevin Kwan's books, Making Faces, right? So here I was in a bookstore in Barnes & Noble, and I remember opening them up. Here I was in my high school Letterman's jacket. Mind you, I'm like, 18 years old, still wearing this. And I'm looking at this, and this woman comes around and goes, "Can I help you, sir?" And it was one of those, and I'm hiding it like I'm hiding a Playboy. Like, how crazy is this, right? This is how much shame there was in this sort of thing. And so here I came to Australia. My wife at the time was a makeup artist, nail technician, all these other things. I'm surrounded by everything that was like all the things I wanted within my life, and I had to hate it. I mean, it was like putting a steak on the nose of a dog. Let's be honest. It was just like, great. I was listening to people around me who was a lot of anti-religion, anti-church, anti-everything, pretty much. And so, a lot of this was hiding. So again, you can understand why it's taken me over 20 years to come back to a space like this. Even now, I'm sweating bullets, to be honest. But when I came out as transgender, again, at that point, I was lost. I remember days I'd go at lunch breaks, and I'd walk down to the local Meijer, David Jones, and I'd wander through the different levels, and I'd see these mannequins with faceless figures. And I'd stare at them, and I felt I couldn't see myself anymore. I lost myself somewhere. I'd sit in the crowds and watch the people go by. I'd listen to the murmur. I'd hear their energy. I would hear them talk. I'd watch the women. I'd watch the men. I'd watch the children. I'd watch everything go around me. And I removed myself as if I was watching the stage of my life go by. And I'd move around in different seats around that stage. And I'd watch it again, and I'd watch again, and I'd watch again. And nothing was making sense. And eventually, when I finally made that decision, and I actually had a D-Day for Daniel. It was my birthday, and I did drag. And as soon as I did that, most people were like, "Are you trying to tell us something here? This is you're a little too good at this." And unfortunately, my marriage had fallen apart, and I was thrown on a trajectory that I didn't understand what I was doing. And I realized most of my life that maybe the path that was chosen for me, I just couldn't find it. And I've been wandering in the bush the entire time on the side of the road, all that gravel and rocks and trees and everything like that, and I just couldn't find my way back onto the road. And as soon as I had finally come out, and I'd spoken to somebody about identity, I remember breaking down and having that honesty within myself. And I felt that weight. I felt that heaviness that hit me. And that realization that this is where I need to go, and it's not going to be easy. So, when I'd finally made this decision, I'd taken a small career break, actually, and I was doing IT for 20 years. Ever since I was young, I'd tear apart everything, trying to figure out how it worked, right? Every computer, every phone, every device I could figure out and just try to understand it. But unfortunately, coming out as transgender, I lost all of that. Most people, so I took a small career break of 20 years, and then I decided to go and do makeup artistry and eyelash extensions and all those sort of things. And I was sort of in my element, but unfortunately, the people who I thought were close to me at that time weren't. Didn't support me, turned me away. So I tried coming back to find my I don't call it my tribe, I call it my pride. Right? My pride. And because I do see us as these amazing lions, this strength that we have. And people just want to gravitate to us sometimes because they're just so in awe of us sometimes. And I forget that sometimes. But sometimes you have to hit your worst in order to become your best. I had no real name. I had no real identity. I knew where I needed to be, but I didn't know how to get there. And some ways there's a song that relates to this, and I remember reading these lines to you. I'll share them with you. I have them in here. Now this is the Bible that was given to me when I was in grade 4. And it's one of the few things I've carried with me in my entire life. And when I was trying to find where I was going, a verse that always came back that was given to me within my Bible. And it's Isaiah 1:17. And when I do the things I do, if it does not meet this mantra, I will not do it. And it is to learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, defend the fatherless, plead for the widow. And I go, whatever I'm doing, I need to meet this. This is who I am. This is my path. And I've always listened to music. So when I left and I couldn't find my spirituality, I'd listen to the radio and what would come on. And one of the songs that I always loved, look, if I hear Somewhere Over the Rainbow, it's one of the songs that makes me cry immediately. I cannot help it. It is a trigger. It just happens. But Rainbow Connections is one that always came to me. And there's a section in there that always speaks to me when I think about the work that I do. And have you been half asleep, and have you heard voices? I've heard them calling my name. Is this the sweet sound that calls the young sailors? The voice might be one and the same. I've heard it too many times to ignore it. It's something that I'm supposed to be. And someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. So I hit my lowest, and I was checking out. No job, couldn't put food in my cupboard, nothing. Barely had my kids. I had lost everything. I had no pride circle. I planned my exit, bought a tarp, was going to clean my house. It was going to be a last weekend with my daughters. Had a massive argument. When you have a really big cry, and you wake up and you have that gauzy kind of eyes, and you're just kind of And normally I kept my house closed, blinds closed, just kind of kept very private in my space. But my kids, young as they were and magnificent as they are, and as much a pain in my ass as they are, they surprised me so much. And I remember waking up, and they had opened up the house, and there was my youngest with a wig on and a little flower in her hair, and she's with lipstick like this in a mirror. And she's like, "Hi, Daddy," and I'm still Dad, but it's she and her. I said, "Hi, Daddy," and I'm like, "Hey, baby, how are you?" And she's like, "Good." And then there was my oldest. She was at the kitchen table, and she had another one of my wigs on and another flower. And she was drawing a photo of not just myself, but her mother and her sister and everything. And she was like, "Dad, look, it's our family. There's you. Look, you're a girl." And I'm like, man, my kids get this. They're going to be fine. Right? Everyone else has a problem. So, when I'm freaking out, I got $5 to my name. I got nothing in the cupboard. I'm feeding them 2-minute noodles. I'm like, what in the world am I going to do? Now, at this time, as I was trying to find support, I was being turned away by many of the different services that had the kitchens and stuff, or the little grocery stores in the back of the churches or the community centers, because I was given vouchers from local Centerlink that said you can go in here and get free food and stuff. But I actually was turned away by one and had to go to another because they said we don't support trans people, which is a common thing I heard along the last 8 years of being out and doing the work that I do, almost 9 years now. But the next day, and it's funny, the next day, some of those that we probably would consider sinners within life were the people who actually showed up the next day with 3 suitcases full of food. I had 10 bags of flour. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with 10 bags of flour. But all of a sudden, I didn't say nothing. I've always kept stuff to myself. I always try and show a positive image because, in society, most people come up to you and go, "Hey, how you going? How's your day?" And they don't want to hear how your day is. They just want to go and say, "Yeah, great, thanks." But inside you're going, "I hate everything." And so you're just, you have to hide these things. right? So they didn't know. They had no idea. But there was a feeling that they had, that they were like, we needed to come see you and bring you this. And I said, I find it interesting that those who consider themselves saints won't open up and give me a couch or a crust of bread. But it was those who were sinners who showed up to feed me. And I thought, what am I doing? Oh my God, I have too many people to prove wrong. What am I going to do? I need to shift this, whatever. I remember going and I went and did 10 coffees in a day. I was meeting with people I didn't know, and I'm like, I have got to just open my mouth and talk to people. And this is the 6-month period where I had lost everything. And I'm like, I need to bounce back. I had hit there. What I always loved were the stories that were right there. That bounce. What made you bounce and go up? So when I started doing Radio at Joy, I came in as a guest to talk about these things. I remember coming out of the studio, and the directors were like, we need you to stay, we need you to come back, and you stayed. And so I was searching for more of those stories. I was looking for those pebbles on the water that skimmed up. But I remember that day with the 10 coffees, and I remember sitting down with somebody, and they were transphobic. And I remember them going and getting really aggressive with somebody. And I said, you need to calm down. I said, because how you're responding, how you're acting, how this is going on is going to impact someone like myself. Here I'm 10 coffees in, just the entire time just shaking while I'm talking to them and like feeling very agitated. But we worked through it, and I realized that I needed to be listening probably a little bit to what's going on around me. So I always said at that point, I'm going to save the world one coffee at a time, and meeting up with so many different people, having these conversations and listening to their stories and see where I can learn people's misunderstandings, become a teacher. And it's one thing I always wanted to be when I was younger, was a teacher. I always loved history and science, which is why one of my favorite props when I do things is a piece of coprolite in a bag. Now, anyone who understands science, coprolite is a fossilized piece of dinosaur shit. And I always talk about this piece of coprolite because we often do the same things over and over, or do the same things that is called the same thing, then relabel it constantly. So we're always kind of recycling a piece of shit and giving it fancy names, right? I see it. Last 8 years, I see it all the time, right? Yes, I will wear them in front of church, and I said shit like 3 times. Bear with me. It's been a while, okay? So I went out and started having more and more conversations. Next thing I'm speaking in front of football teams. I'm speaking in front of politicians. I'm speaking in front of commissioners. I'm speaking in front of all these different people, CEOs, whatever. But I'm most nervous speaking here in front of all of you because this is where our safe space is and me exposing myself and my spirituality. But I realized that as I was digging further, I realized there was further issues facing the transgender community. Not only within the heterosexual spaces, when it came to recruiting organizations, when it came to corporate organizations, when it came to anything hiring, anything to do with this community, I was identifying that those between the ages of 26, 30 and 60, 65 who were transitioning at a later age, especially trans women, were falling into the more homophobic attitudes that were out there to the stereotypes of a gay man who's flamboyant and drag and feminine, etc. Not so much around trans, but people were so confused. But I found that this also came back even to our own community. And I realized that we are not a community. We are a community of communities. We don't understand each other, and we need to find a way to do that. So I went and started focusing more on the employment issues, realizing that if I give somebody a job, they can get their dignity back, no matter what level it is. They don't have to be the CEO. They don't have to be an executive director. They don't have to be the people manager. Even just a job, just a little bit of a coin in their pocket where they can feel they got some dignity and get back out there. I always hate sometimes sharing the stuff I do on social media. I don't want to talk about those things. I don't have to sit and brag about the things that I do and what's going on. So a lot of times I do things very silently in the background. Many different coffees I've met with other people in my community, sitting down with trans women who were attacked. Trans women who come to me and are basically crying, and I've bought them a meal and I've paid their Mikey ticket to get them back home to somewhere like Ballarat or Geelong or wherever. I don't need to talk about these things because this is what we do. This is what we're supposed to do to look after our family, look after our people. So I hate it. I hate doing it because that's not what this is about. This is not about me. It's about the work that needs to be done to bring us back together. The biggest display of this, unfortunately, was in marriage equality. So I can show you the images of postal vote survey, everyone in front of the State Library of Victoria. Every identity was there. We were trans, gender diverse, non-binary, gay, lesbian, pan, and a partridge in a pear tree. Everybody was there. Right? Hooting, hollering, celebrating, confetti, everything. But outside our community, they see that was, well, marriage equality happened. Marriage equality was, this is what is, you're now fine, what's the problem? I don't understand. Because we're the LGBTIQA plus community. When it came to marriage equality, it wasn't a fix-all. It became a divide for many gender diverse people and sexually diverse people. Many gender diverse people in the transgender community were thrown under the bus, a lot of attacking from that. It put us more at risk, actually. The thing was, well, there was actually further laws that up until that point, if I had wanted to stay married and I wanted to go and have certain specific surgeries or have gender markers on my documents, I would have had to go through a divorce, even if I didn't want to, and then I couldn't get remarried. So that did not come into effect until a year later, after marriage equality. So one whole year later that we had that. Right? So that's one small thing that most people didn't actually realize. But also many people within the heterospace outside ours also don't realize that in South Australia, the gay panic defense actually was only removed in 2020. Right? So we're still all dealing with this stuff together. So recently I went for the religious discrimination bill stuff and stuff around the trans sports conversations and the rallies, and I didn't see anybody who identified as gay, lesbian, bi, standing there with us as transgender people marching down the road. Nobody there holding us up, nobody standing there by our side supporting us. We need you there. I know you don't understand us. I get it. There's a lot to get around. There's a lot of new definitions every week. And as a teacher of this stuff, it does my head in because there's always a new definition every week. But we need you. We really, really need you. I myself, as an advocate, I'm tired. But I keep going because I sit down with the people who I see in pain and I can still help. And I still buy them some lunch. I still have a conversation with them. And I still see the things they're going through. So it means a lot to come here today to all of you and however many people are tuning in today as well, and be able to go share these things with you. And this is why I love things like being like the Mama Mish thing that was given to me by community, by parents, by everything. But I need you to realize that there's more groups beyond one pocket, beyond youth, beyond people of color, beyond refugees, beyond disability. There's a whole community identifies in so many ways that we need to think of the community as a whole and think about all of them and how we can support them. There's so many of us who are too afraid and don't want to come and connect. As many times I've gone to sit with having a beer and a drink with many of my gay or lesbian friends, and and to be told out of jest that, yes, this space and this event was actually designed for us as gay men, but you're welcome to be here. We need everyone to come back. Okay? We desperately do, because I see people begging for support and begging for help. Thank you so much for letting me come here today and talk to you, share my story, share the work I'm going on, and then the work that still needs to be done. I'm so full of, my spiritual cup is so full right now, and I want to thank you, Becky, for having me come here today and share these things with you. Anybody who does want to reach out, please reach out. Come have a chat anytime. Think about the things that you can do within your world, within your life, that can often help someone within my community. Again, everything from homelessness to unemployment to physical abuse, economic abuse, financial abuse, everything. We need the support that you can offer. So, thank you, and God bless.